Shalom. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to pick up in Matthew chapter 11, start at verse 16, and go through verse 19, very short. To what can I compare this generation? They're like children sitting in the marketplace and calling out to others. We played the pipe for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, well, here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by her deeds. Now, this comes on the tail end of where Jesus had been talking about John the Baptist and extolling his virtue, and that he was the Elijah to come, that he is the last of the great Old Testament prophets, and that even we who are the least in the kingdom of heaven are actually greater than he is. That's an interesting statement. But then he talks about an interesting thing about this generation, the generation that he was living in, the people who knew John the Baptist and responded to John the Baptist's preaching or rejected his preaching, or the people who are responding to Jesus or rejecting Jesus' teaching. And he said, this generation is like children sitting in the marketplace. They're playing games and they play songs, and well, we play this happy song and you didn't dance. We play this dirge and you didn't mourn. So they were like, there's nothing you could do to please them. And that is the point that Jesus begins to make. You really cannot please everyone. And he says this, for John came neither eating nor drinking, and they said, well, he has a demon. So when John the Baptist came, he was an ascetic. That is, he lived a very Spartan, sparse lifestyle. He ate locusts and wild honey. He lived out in the desert, didn't live in a great castle or even a house. He was a wild man, so to speak, and he dressed like a prophet. He had this leather belt and a camel hair vest, and he was a wild man. And everybody said, well, he has a demon. He's just crazy. And then here's Jesus describing himself, the Son of Man. That's his description for himself, which is one of the messianic terms, by the way. The Son of Man came eating and drinking. So instead of being an ascetic and living a Spartan lifestyle, Jesus lived a normal lifestyle like everybody else. But the criticism was, well, he's just a drunkard and a glutton. And worse than that, he's a friend of tax collectors and sinners. It's interesting the way they regarded him. They rejected John, and they rejected Jesus, and they found a reason to reject him. And the reason had nothing to do with reality. And that's the way it is with quite a few people. They can reject Jesus, reject John, they can reject the gospel message, but it has nothing to do with reality. It has to do with their own unwillingness to obey God's word and adjust their life to him. This is why Jesus says wisdom is proved right. Wisdom is shown to be right by its results. The lifestyle of a person reveals their character. Jesus said earlier, by their fruit you will know them. And so here's Jesus describing the fact that you can't please everyone. You can only live for the Lord, and he's the only one you need to worry about pleasing. Thanks for joining me.